We welcome you here to the Christenberry Fieldhouse as we are just underway here in the Peach Belt Conference opener for the 2018 season. This between the host Augusta Jaguars and the Flagler Saints. The Jaguars have jumped out to an early 7-1 lead here in set one. I'm Robert Ambrose. I'm joined by Blake Collins. Here today, we do apologize. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we're glad now to be bringing you the rest of the action. We'd like to thank Blake for getting on top of things here and bring you back the action, as we are now in a timeout that was just taken by the Saints after the Jaguars' fast start here. This is, as I said, the Peach Belt Conference opener between both teams, and also both teams in the conference starting conference play today as well. The Jaguars played on Tuesday against Clark Atlanta here at the Chris, and they swept the match 3-0, and they were dominant in all three sets. Although Clark Atlanta improved slightly each set, but the Jaguars were still able to roll to win all three sets. And once again, I'm Robert Ambrose, joined by Blake Collins. We're just off the timeout. Chloe Allen is back to serve it for the Jaguars. And Blake, just how huge was Tuesday's win? Just getting ready for conference play this weekend, just closing out the non-conference play on a high note.
It was a huge victory to get them tuned up and ready for opening conference matchup play here tonight against the Saints of Flagler. When they went toe-to-toe against Clark Atlanta, and Clark Atlanta improved during all three of the sets. So it was a huge victory. It got Augusta rolling and everything fine-tuned to get everything cooking on all cylinders, firing off the bat with good rotations, good footwork, and everything else involved with the game of volleyball that you're seeing right now with Augusta being up by 8, 9-1.
And it's now 9-2 as the Saints have a point. The Saints in their road black jerseys, yellow numbers, red sleeves. The Jaguars, their home whites with blue numbers here in this one. This is the last home game for the Jaguars in the month of September, as they'll have 3 straight on the road against Georgia College on Tuesday, next Friday against the Braves of UNC Pembroke, and then on Saturday against Francis Marion, and then they'll return home on October the 2nd, a Tuesday night against Emmanuel. And then we'll take on Lander in Peach Belt Conference action here at the Chris on October 5th, followed by a big game against USC Aiken the day after on the 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, start time of that one here at Christenberry Fieldhouse. Blake, that's going to be an outstanding match. We'll bring you all the action for those games on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. 10-2 Jaguars here in set one. And a diving dig by Brian Garmos, but it sails out of bounds. So that's a point for the Saints, and it's 10-3. Jaguars have won 2 in a row since falling to Carson Newman on September 8th. They came back and defeated West Alabama later that same day in 5 sets, and then swept Clark Atlanta, as I mentioned, on Tuesday. And Tuesday's match ended a streak of 10 days without a game for the Jaguars, as their planned trip to Tigerville, South Carolina last weekend was canceled because of the threat of Hurricane Florence. And they're happy to be back at it here in this one. Savannah Gonzalez will serve for the Jaguars. Natalia Govea will take a seat. It's 11-4. Augusta on top here early on. And one of the things that will be tough for the Saints to reckon with in this game, it's going to be tough for any Jaguar opponent to reckon with this season, is the Jaguars' front court. They have a huge height advantage with Mackenzie Beck at 5'10", Savannah Gonzalez at 6'1". They're on the attack, and Holland Martin and Mackenzie Beck both diving out of bounds for it and virtually doing a somersault, but it falls short of the net. That's a point for the Saints. It's 12-5. It's a good crowd on a beautiful Friday night here in the CSRA. Good crowd turnout here at the Chris with lots of high school football going on in the area here today. Got a big day of college football as well tomorrow around the country. It's now 13-5 Jaguars. Still working to get you the video feed. And we apologize for technical difficulty. We will have it up shortly. That's Holland Martin serving it, and that's a service error. She hits it right back to the net. It's 13-6. So the Jaguars went up 9-1 early. It's a 5-1 Flagler, or a 5-4 Flagler run since that time after their timeout. They've figured some things out. Jaguars on the attack. They float it over. And good news, we now have the video and the scoreboard feed back up. I'd like to thank my friend Blake Collins for getting all that taken care of. We apologize for the technical difficulty, and we're glad to bring you the rest of the action.
It's going to be a good in-your-face, down-home rivalry matchup between these two schools. As you mentioned, Augusta has a dominant front court that has made their presence known in the blocking scheme with a brick wall kind of a blocking scheme with them being really close together. That time Flagler did penetrate the blocking ability of Augusta, but it's not very often they can do that with how close together and how close-knit the Augusta front court is in the blocking scheme. It's a great job there by Flagler to secure their 7th point in doing so.
14-7 Jaguars. Flagler with 7 points, like you said, Jaguars with 14. Mackenzie Beck is waiting to serve for the Jaguars. We have a little confusion between a ref and one of the players. Like you mentioned, how on Tuesday, Clark Atlanta made each set as the match went on tougher for the Jaguars, but the Jaguars still dominated all 3 sets of the sweep. But it shows you just how hard the closeout set is, and how, of course, how much harder it is to win the second set compared to the first one, and the closeout compared to the second as well. It gets harder as the game goes on. Absolutely,
and it also shows you the chess match in between each set that both teams play with each other. You know, you come out, yes, you dominated 2 sets out of it, but they improved each individual set. So you come out, stick to your own game plan, but you also come up with strategies how to thwart their exploding offense and their rigorous fight to begin with. So it kind of shows you the chess match that each team played with each other there. Even though Augusta took all 3 sets soundly, they definitely improved, and it got them fired up and ready for this particular match in a conference opener here at the Crisp, as you like to say, in the Peach Belt Conference opener versus the Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we have a free timeout for both teams. As we still have a little confusion, but both teams using it as a free timeout to huddle up and talk things over, and it'll be Beck's turn to serve for the Jaguars.
Very good job there from Augusta, exploiting the defensive openings in the defensive backcourt for the Saints. The defensive setter and the libero were flat on their feet and not in attack position on defense, and Augusta seized on it and attacked beautifully.
One sails out of bounds at 16-8. Mass substitution coming for the Saints. We have Rachel Parada checking in.
Now we talked about the front court. The back court is just as key for Augusta as well, with the libero and Natalia Govea in the backcourt patrolling the defensive sets as well. And Govea has been strong in the kill game as well as the setup game, but then you got Holland Martin, the libero, there just as well. Fierce on defense, diving for everything she can, trying to save points. Augusta's all around very good, and that is something that the Saints are really going to have to try to come up with good strategies to try to circumvent the phenomenal gameplay of Augusta.
Yeah, absolutely, and they get a spike there. And also, Blake, you mentioned the Jaguars' front court is a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When you have your middle hitter and your outside attackers that close together, almost forming a brick wall, which is why we like to call it a brick wall, and it being so close together like that, it's hard to penetrate it. Now, there are options to do that, like Flagler's trying to do in simple float overs over the top that can get you squared away, causing the defensive setter and the libero to move up, and then you can exploit the openings in the backcourt to try to creep back up in this ball game in this matchup for the Saints. And there are other ways to do it as well, but right now the Flagler Saints have got some catching up to do and utilize some of those strategies to do that.
They've been able to do a fine job of that since it was 9-1 Jaguars. It's now 17-10 Jaguars. Jaguars with 3 up on the net, and nowhere for the Saints to hit that one. So it's 18-10.
Even though that was a wee tad strong on the kill from Flagler, it was a beautiful setup and perfect height to penetrate it over the net and try to secure it inside the backcourt of the Augusta side of the court. So very good job of setting it up there. Just a little bit off center on the execution there by Flagler.
Now it's 18-11. With this conference play in these games, you can't get into a false sense of security even if you go on a run and take an early lead. It doesn't mean anything.
Especially when you let that hinder your play and not playing up to the best of your ability, because in a situation like this where it means a lot, especially in conference play, every situation is not as intensified as it would be in the playoffs, but it is magnified to a degree because every play and every win and loss matters in this game. So it's intensified, but you also don't want it to let it hinder you to the point to where you cannot play your A game coming in here against a very dominant team that we've seen out of Augusta thus far.
What a beautiful diving dig by Holland Martin, and the Jaguars floated over, and the Saints not quite able to get a diving dig there, so it's 20-12 Jaguars. And
that just goes to show you a little bit of the mental capacities of volleyball. You go up for a kill and you readjust in the middle of going up for that kill by faking like you're going to go for a kill, then hit a soft float over that deadens right in the middle of 4 Flagler Saints. Good strategic adjustment there in the center of that play to set that play up for the Jags.
Savannah Gonzalez with a beautiful kill.
It was set up beautifully. You had precision type assist going around the horn from Garmos to Holland back to Savannah for the kill. That was beautiful, and it crossed up the defense a little bit for Flagler.
That one bounces off the net. Jaguar point. Jaguars trying to close out set 1 here in this one. And that one bounces right to Jaguars head coach Sharon Quarles, and it's 22-14.
The carom off of Savannah's arm there took an awkward sail out of bounds, but a very good job of using the net there to kind of assist them in slowing the ball down for Flagler, and then picking a spot on the body to utilize so it would deflect out of bounds and garner the point for Flagler.
22-15. Flagler gets another point. See both teams lining up in a straight line behind the net. And you see the Jaguars move into attack position. And then they're able to beautifully, very quickly rotate three right up onto the net as well.
That fluid rotation there is a lot of what we've been talking about. Being able to fluidly rotate and then account for every position in every facet of their side of the court to dig out, make great saves, and have great body control in doing so that it doesn't give the opposing team, in this case Flagler, very many options open to try to penetrate to garner points. So they do a very good job at that. Now Flagler's been able to, when they find holes, attack it beautifully, and it secured them 15 points thus far.
24-16 set point here in set one. And the Jaguars take set one here in the Peach Belt Conference opener with the Flagler Saints. Blake will take a quick break. We'll come back and preview set two shortly on the other side of this break on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Chris as we were getting set to begin set two after the Jaguars took the first set of the Peach Belt Conference season here in 2018. The Jaguars in set one took a very early 9-1 lead, had a very fast start, and there was no looking back. Flagler continued to battle, but they were unable to overcome the slow start after the Jaguars jumped on them 9-1, and that resulted in the Jaguars taking a 1-0 lead as we get set for set two. I'm Robert Ambrose alongside Blake Collins as the Jaguars are getting set to take the court. The Saints are still in a team meeting over on the bench, and And the important thing, if you're Flagler, if they want to even this match, they got to start a lot stronger than they started in set 1.
Absolutely. Augusta came out with all guns a-blazing, firing on all cylinders, and really penetrated very well through the front court of Flagler. And it was interesting because Flagler, at the start of it, elected to go with a little bit of a smaller lineup and electing to go with speed more so than height up front. That might have hindered them a little bit. It looks like they've got a lot of their size back on the court right now. We'll see if that plays a factor. Although speed does definitely beat size, but in this case with the speed of Augusta, it didn't. It actually kind of hurt them because the front court for the Jags, as well as they do in blocking, they're also very fast as well, and they can maneuver and rotate very fluidly. So it kind of hurt Flagler in that instance, but they've got everybody as far as size up at the front court back, and we'll see if that helps them out.
Yeah, absolutely, and a diving dig on the Jaguars side. The Jaguars take the early 1-0 lead in this set after a service error to start the second set by the Saints, and now they hit one out of bounds, and it's 2-0 Jaguars. And once again, this is not the start that the Saints wanted after the way set 1 went.
No, not at all. Now you just have if you're Flagler, look at it just like it is the start of the matchup. You want to forget about that first set, play your game, and work on different things to confuse the Augusta defense and open up holes for yourself. And when you do that, press the pedal to the metal, capitalize on it, and don't let up.
And Chloe Allen hits it way up in the air for the Jaguars, and that's going to be it down. And it's 4-0 Jaguars. Jaguars off to another fast start.
Savannah and Chloe could never get that dig attempt lifted off of the ground there. Good placement on the kill by the Saints to tack on their first point of the set of the match, or of the set, rather.
That goes off the hands of Holland Martin. It was a hard hit ball, and it's really hard to dig those up, even if you are in the right position, and especially with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
So 4-2 Jaguars.
And I will say this too, especially with Augusta playing shorter and Clark Atlanta in kind of tune-ups for this, with Flagler scoring 17 points in these first two sets, they're looking pretty good as far as like being able to find holes, being able to secure points. Which would like to see them do, though, is string some of those together and force the Augusta defense to become discombobulated and make mental mistakes and mental errors, which, as we've seen, they are not accustomed to doing. And when they do those, and when they do create those mistakes, they respond really well coming out of them. So that's something that Flagler will want to try to exploit and make happen in this particular matchup to hopefully tie this matchup up and move ahead if they have a chance to in the set tally.
They trail at 6-2 here. And what a hard hit ball that was. Beautiful kill. There was nothing the Saints could have done about that one.
Some of the most accurate and lethal shots on kills I have seen come from the Augusta front court. Beck is phenomenal at knowing how hard and how accurate to place balls to secure points off of those. And the same with Savannah, the same with Rachel, and the same with a couple of other front court personnel for the Jags. They're a master at doing that.
And as a result of being a master, they're up 8-2. They were up 9-1 in set one, and there was no looking back. It was a back and forth for the rest of that set, but the 9-1 run the Jaguars got off to, there was no looking back, and it was over at that point, basically. It's now 9-2 Jaguars as they're looking to bury the Saints once again, as the Saints once again in a tough hill to climb. They were unable to climb it in set one. And now it's 10-2 Jaguars.
And Augusta's doing a really good job of scouting the defense before the ball even gets to their side of the court, so they know where they're going with the volleyball before the ball even gets to their side of the court, and they execute it flawlessly to get the points that they've acquired here. But a very good job of utilizing eye movement to scout where they want to ahead of time to be able to emphatically tackle on those points.
Yeah, and here's some eye-popping stats when you look at the way this game is going, Blake. The Jaguars only have 3 attack errors, and the Saints have 15.
That will hurt any team coming out of the gate, but especially against this Jaguars team. Physical mistakes like that are not as devastating as mental errors when you know you can correct the mental errors you see and also the physical errors, but they are that much more downing in the fact that when you try to correct those physically, the other team has a chance to capitalize on you in the process of doing that, and that could hurt Flagler coming out of this timeout. We'll have to wait and see. But again, you don't want to see more mental errors than physical errors, but from what the Flagler Saints are committing right now with these physical errors, like you mentioned with the attack errors, it's will be interesting to see how Augusta can come back and tack on more points, or if the Saints can correct that without giving the Jags an opening to do so.
Yeah, and right off the bat, the Jaguars with the service error, so now it's 10-3. The Jaguars, in addition, they've also executed really well, and there's not much you can do about that if you're the opposition. Also, the Jaguars with a .255 hit percentage. The Saints, .098.
That's another key factor. Jags are getting a lot more touches and more accurate touches at that. And with that pristine placement that they have on these particular kills, it's working out because the defense of the Saints can't recover.
And it's now 11-4 after the Saints get another point. Set two is, I probably mention this every time we do a broadcast, but it's probably the most important set of any match because it's always the situation where one team can be up 2-0 and have a closeout third set, and the other team needs it to not be in a 0-2 deficit and try to tie it back up. When a set is tied at 1-1 or 0-0 if it's set one, you just want to take the early lead to avoid being in somewhat of a position where you have to climb a tough hill. Set two, based on that, is always the most important set for both sides.
And it's one of those sets that has the biggest momentum attached to it because it can bring a team back from the depths of defeat and really ignite a fire under them and light them up to persevere and overtake a lead like the Saints are trying to do now and at least tie this set tally up. But it can also deflate you to a point, too, to where it'll be hard to come back from and counteract that in the third set.
Yeah, absolutely. 13-5 Jaguars. We'll see Mackenzie Beck serve it. And now it's 13-6.
Now if you're Flagler, you want to be able to try to push home some points here and capitalize on that error by the Jags to try to rally and deadlock this score. In one of the rare few mishaps there by Holland Martin, she had her weight shifted to the left there instead of shifting it to the right and migrating to the ball. She was a little bit late in the delayed reaction, and that's what bit the Jaguars right there.
They almost floated it over the head of Chloe Allen and the Jaguars' very good front court, but she somehow got back and was able to poke it back over the net.
Communication is key in those types of situations. Augusta had good communication on the far side with a phenomenal save out on the far side. Near side-wise on Flagler, you almost had two defenders colliding with each other and no one to resuscitate the dig on the outside to retrieve it and save the point.
Now 15-7, Jaguars. Govea will serve it. We mentioned during previous matches, and you see it there as well. Govea, when she serves it, she loves to hit it, to toss it high in the air and hit it hard. She does it so again there, but that time she hit it a little hard and it goes straight out of bounds. So it's 15-8. But she's very aggressive when she does her serves.
Absolutely, and as much height as Govea gets underneath the ball, it allows her to center her body and get as much force and adjust how much force she has behind that serve, which is more lethal in strategy when you think about it, and that's what makes a phenomenal server like Govea dangerous in that aspect.
And the Saints spike it down. That was a very soft spike, but they hit it away from the Jaguars' front. So it's 16-9. What we're seeing here, it's similar to what we saw in set one. The Saints, after falling behind, have started to battle back, but they've never really been able to, and we saw this in set one as well, they've never really been able to chip away at it. The Jaguars have been able to close out both times so far.
Not too terribly much so. In outside of the runs that the Jags have placed and run over on the Saints, this is the closest the Saints have been to catching back up, down by 5 right now.
Down by 5, 16-11. The score. Jaguars try to hit over. I think, Blake, this is the point in the season for the Jaguars where it transitions. With conference play beginning, the season transitions from a marathon to a sprint. After this, the Jaguars play 3 straight road conference games against Georgia College, UNC Pembroke, and Francis Marion before returning home to take on Emmanuel on October 2nd.
When you account for only what I'm looking at here is 3 more games outside of your conference, then you're right. It's a sprint, but also it's a gladiator type of sprint, because when you look at it, none of these Peach Belt Conference teams are going to go without a fight and without some sort of a tussle in trying to come back, redefine the game and change the landscape of the game and change every game in their favor. So from that standpoint, yeah, it is definitely going. It's definitely a sprint, but it's also more of like a Ninja Warrior meets Gladiator type of environment too, in a sense that every team is going to fight you and every team is going to battle you.
Oh yeah.
In the Peach Belt Conference until the bitter end, and it's like we're watching right now currently in baseball. Until the X and the Y is put beside your team, then the battles and the fights will continue. And even still, you'll have some teams that may actually start to simmer back down and not play their best, but that's when the surprises will happen, and that's when teams that are on their A game will surprise the teams that should beat those teams that are upsetting those teams. So it's a full court sprint, but it's also a marathon as well, with gladiator and ninja warrior type of tenacity involved in it.
Yeah, and the Clark Atlanta showed on Tuesday they didn't go away without a fight, as you mentioned, Blake. They played the Jaguars tougher each set, even though the Jaguars rolled to sweep the match. And Flagler doesn't go away even after falling behind early, but obviously the Jaguars have not been willing to let them chip away at all.
And that's one of the things we've touched on all season long, is when the Jags smell blood in the water, they become more focused, they become more lethal, and they become more dangerous. And they can put sets away in very fine fashion and change the tides and the momentum of the particular matchups that they're in.
Martin digs it up, and the Jaguars go directly onto the attack, and a good stop on the Saints side. But that was a very fast motion by the Jaguars to go straight onto that attack. And Brian Garmos accidentally hits it down as it was hit right to her. She didn't react in time there. So 21-14.
The only thing with Garmos there was her hand placement was not where she wanted it to be in order to try to dig that out. And a good job of scouting that out by Flagler and pinpointing the spot of attack to create that downward trajectory to tack on their 15th point.
15th point makes it 21-15. Jaguars up. Martin slips as she digs it up. And that one's going to sail out of bounds. Jaguar point, 22-15.
That was one of those things where the Kareem off of the body took a redirection, and it was a foot race to see who would get to the dig fast enough. And the ball actually landed out of bounds before they could get to the ball, and it's a good play.
22-16 Jaguars, as the Saints have cut it to 6. Jaguars will be smelling blood, like you said, but that does not make it any easier to close this one out.
Oh, absolutely not. And when you know that you're under that type of pressure, it also can allow you as the opposing team to become more focused and to become more of a adversary, in a sense that you're not going down without a serious fight.
No team in this level of volleyball or in any sport would do that. 24-16, it's now a set point for the Jaguars. It'll be Beck's serve. The entire of both benches, as you might imagine, nobody sits down in volleyball, whether you're in the game or on the bench. Just shows how much into the game the players are. The Jaguars take set 2, 25-16. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and preview set 3 on the other side of this break. This is the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Christenberry Fieldhouse. We are set for set 3 here in the Peach Belt Conference opener between the Jaguars and the Flagler Saints. As once again, the Jaguars have taken sets 1 and 2 and looking to sweep this match. The Saints trying to extend it to a set 4. I'm Robert Ambrose, joined by Blake Collins. Then for play-by-play for the third set, I'm going to turn it over to Blake. Take it away.
Thank you, Robert. Augusta has come out surging big time against a conference rival that is looking pretty good themselves, although they've run into a powerhouse here with the Jaguars. And thing is, like, Augusta has very, very good footwork and very good rotational work, and it doesn't look like, Robert, that the Saints have had much of an answer to be able to try to come up with a strategy to circumvent that, or an attack strategy to try to string points together and make this matchup a contest.
No, the reason for that is the Jaguars in each of the first 2 sets jumped out to a very fast start, and the Saints were unable to overcome them either time. And the focus right now for the Saints is get off to a better start and don't let the Jaguars get all the momentum if they want to have a fourth set in this one.
As you see, Natalia Govea will start the third set off with a bang in serving. She serves it up beautifully for the libero to dig it out. And an emphatic point number 1 coming out of the timeout is attributed to the Saints off a phenomenal kill there, right in an area where the defense for the Jags, there were no bodies there to try to defend that.
And in the last set, the Jaguars got the first point off a Flagler service error, and that really kick-started the run.
Another gorgeous dig by Kayla Norelli, the libero, but they could not sustain it as Augusta comes right back to Norelli to tack on and deadlock this score at 1 apiece. Good setup here. The outside hitter tries to muscle up a huge kill on the outside, but it's emphatically Augusta saying, not in my house, and halts that right in front of the outside attacker, right on the Flagler side of the court. Now it is 2-1 in favor of Augusta. Beck shoots it off, and Augusta comes right back with another kill. So I believe that was Rachel Hill. Or no, excuse me, Savannah Gonzalez on that particular kill. And now Savannah goes over to the left-hand side and just softly says, I'm going to take charge of this, and touches it over to where the Saints could not respond in time to dish it back over, so the point goes to Augusta, and Flagler has not been able to respond out of that first opening offering to tack on the first point of the set, Robert.
5-1 Jaguars right now on the lead. The Saints had the first point of this set, and since then it's been all Jaguars. Now another point by Flagler on the service error, but Jaguars, even though they gave Flagler had the first point, they're off to another fast start.
And now you have Sarah Shark anchoring down the serve for Flagler. Dig out by Augusta. Augusta transitions well to Gavea. Shoots it over. Flagler's ball. Kill on the outside is blocked by Augusta. Set up on the other end. And a kill try that was just a touch too harsh there by the junior Kim Krutzinger for the Jags, and the Saints get a gift point and are only trailing by 2. A dig out from Shark again in the backcourt. This time it was too big and volleyed too high. It went over and landed out of bounds on the Augusta side. So Augusta tacks on their 6-point, and now Garmos serving for Augusta, and she cannot elevate the serve high enough over the net. And now another point that the Flagler can seize momentum on here, Robert, and try to amp up an attack and creep back up into this ball game.
Well, they're in a much better position than they've been all set long, and now it's down to a 1-point set, and Coach Quarles dove for that one as that almost took out one of the chairs on the bench.
The kill attack right there from Flagler was accurately placed in a very good position, touching down just before it ran up to the baseline. And now Augusta's trying to mount a momentum comeback here and take away the momentum from the Saints. And they do just that with a soft kill that had the Saints off kilter and off center of base and out of attack position on defense to wrangle up their seventh point of the third set. And another sharpshooter kill by the Saints. And I believe that is Maddie Irwin. They're trying to secure the kill, but to no avail as it goes back now over to the Flagler side. And this time they atone beautifully with a 4-7 split in bowling, splitting Savannah Gonzalez and also the libero Holland Martin in a pristine kill that garners their 6-point. Now, back to the action. Very quickly, Chloe Allen off an assist by Beck on the near side to the far side. Drills a kill, penetrating the defense to where no one can respond quick enough. And now it is a 9-6 tally in favor of Augusta. The Jags now hit it back over off the serve, but a very quick scouting job there by the Saints. See a defensive hole, decide to try to switch up a little bit of strategy here, Robert, with a soft float over, and Holland could not get to it in time.
And interesting tapping back and forth at the net there, and the Jaguars win that one.
It's not the best of strategies to jockey for position up front against the front court of the Jags with as lethal as they have been. The Saints just found that out, and they'll readjust accordingly. But again, Chloe Allen with a mammoth and emphatic kill that is like, you are not going to defend this. This is too sharp. This is my house, and I am owning it for their 11th point on the Jaguar side.
And that's why it's so tough to reckon with the Jaguars' front court, is the way their height advantage at the front and the way they're able to get up and be in position to make spikes and kills. There's nothing the other teams can do about those, and now it's 3 in a row for the Jaguars.
And let's not sell the defense for the Jags short either. Martin and Gavea on the backside, when both of them are in, are very lethal. Now Sharon Quarles has a rotation towards Savannah Gonzalez, and another rotational aspect to Augusta. You've got players that are very good at all positions, where Savannah is usually in the front court. She's now as a defensive setter almost, and she's doing mighty fine. And with rotations like that and players as versatile as the Jags have, it is hard to be able to thwart this kind of attack and prowess and be able to form a strategy against it. And Augusta just cemented their 12th point coming out of that play. But then the Saints come marching right back with their 10th point, and it's the Saints have learned a couple of things in that timeout, been over different types of strategies to try to fire back here, and they're making this a close contest. They're only trailing by 3 right now.
13-10 is the Jaguars, though. Yes, the Saints have done a lot better job staying close in this one. The Jaguars did get off to a good start, but the Saints answered this time a lot sooner than in the first 2 sets. But the Jaguars are not letting them pull ahead. They're staying in front.
The offense the Saints are getting, they are definitely having to work for, because the Jaguars are not giving them an inch. But the Saints are taking a mile and trying to continue the onslaught here, and they do just that, pulling within 2 in a 13-11 affair here in the 3rd set.
Well, you saw there, Holland Martin got out of the way of that one. It was a hard hit ball, and she let it go. She probably thought it was going to go out of bounds for a Jaguar point, but it just landed in, and it's a point for Flagler. It would have been tough to dig that one up anyway, but nonetheless, she probably thought that was going out of bounds.
Beck is setting up beautifully once to Savannah that got blocked on the other end and set up beautifully by the Saints. This time, she comes back to Krutzinger on the outside, near side, outside attacker there for the Jags, and pushes that point out of bounds. And it's a 1-point affair right now, and a couple of frustrating front court misdirections for the Saints allow the Jags to separate themselves by 2 points and add just a touch of a cushion between them and the Saints. That was a tough read all around, as you didn't know where the ball was going to land, outside of it, landing on top of the net. And the Saints garner the point there. And you can just kind of feel right now the Saints marching along, retaking some of the momentum, which there again, just one mistake can halt it, as you saw right there with the Saints making a little bit of a mistake, and now it's back in the Jaguars' possession.
Well, when the Saints come marching in, the Jaguars doing everything to preserve that lead, as they do there, to make it a 2-point lead once again, 15-13. But you mentioned on Tuesday the Jaguars had a tougher time closing out each set as the match went on, and that's been the case again today, even though the Jaguars are up 2-0. The Saints kept it a little closer in set 2, and now they're really keeping it closer in set 3.
That was a dig that could have gone either way. That Holland redirected herself twice and secured the dig out. Now the ball is alive, back in Garmos' possession. She shoots it back over. The Saints, though, are not quitting, and they keep marching on in this possession. And Augusta, after a minute's worth of back and forth action here on the volleyball court here at the Crisp, bring home their 16th point. They are now ahead by 3, and the Saints head coach, Matt Affolter, decides to take a pivotal timeout to try to rally his team up and to try to deadlock this score once again. But Robert, the Saints are doing a marvelous job of coming back at times, but right now it just seems like Augusta has been cooking on all cylinders and are not taking their foot off of the gas at any point. And what points the Saints are having or are garnering, they're having to severely work for.
Well, the Saints have been playing from behind in this set just like the first two sets, but they've kept it a lot closer, but they've just struggled to take the lead, and I'd say they've had the Jaguars right where they want them the whole set. The Jaguars do not have quite the same amount of momentum as they in this set as they had earlier on in the match here in this one. And I think that's one of the big differences in terms of how this thing could play out.
Absolutely. Is now coming out of the timeout, the Saints have got to readjust and continue marching on while the Jags have the serve possession, and they serve it up, and right off the bat, a kill there from Carly Redfern trying to penetrate that Jags front court, but they say not so fast, my friend. As you get a Lee Corso reference right here, but
hey,
they do say not so fast and tally up their 17th point, and the Saints come right back with their 14th.
Hey, Coach Corso will be in my hometown, Eugene, Oregon, tomorrow for game day.
Absolutely. Eugene and the Oregon Ducks have a really tough game ahead of them tomorrow.
Well, it will be tough, but I'm looking forward to it, hoping they can pull it off as a Duck fan from Eugene.
Absolutely.
And Corso does love picking the Ducks whenever they go there.
It's a good headgear to wear. It's a very good headgear to wear. So
I don't know how he'd handle putting on a tree if he had the big standard.
Well,
if that's the only reason he'd pick the Ducks.
We'll see what happens tomorrow, but I have a really good feeling that the Ducks will do well tomorrow. But as of right now, the Saints are trying to kind of rebound and are getting knocked off their gears right now by the Jags, and the Jags are continuing to migrate ahead and push forward in emphatic fashion, pulling away, now leading by 4, 19-15.
It was 16-15 at one point. And once again, even though the Saints have them right well, the Jaguars are able to get the important points that matter. It's like a basketball game where you make a shot that really matters and it goes in for you, and the ones that really affect the complexion of the game.
Right there, the Augusta defense broke down a little bit in the backcourt. You had a concentration up in the front court securing that, but you only had one back to secure the backcourt, and that bit them as the Saints attack it gorgeously and have their 16th point on the docket. But Augusta has no fear in a comeback, and they come gallivanting right back and absolutely just drive home their 20th point of the third set. But a mistake lets the Saints back in to striking distance now, as it's 20-17. Serve from Flagler. Serve it off. The defense for the Augusta transitions to an offense and a kill from Savannah Gonzalez. And Augusta could not defend that kill from the Saints. And we talked about it before. When the Saints come marching in, Robert, they can be hard to stop at times, and they're showing you why right now, only trailing by 2.
Jaguars get another point there, but yeah, it's not going to be an easy one for the Jaguars to close out here, even though they have the lead. And Flagler can put together a run, and it'll be a whole new ball game if they do.
And now you've got a gorgeous set for Allen, and then an assist on the set from McKenzie as Savannah Gonzalez sets it up. McKenzie with a touch set from Beck, and then Chloe Allen just takes charge, and she is not going to be denied point access as a 22nd point rather is tacked on gorgeously, and then they amp up and convert on their 20. No, excuse me. It's not their 23rd point like I thought it was. It was long on the kill, and the Saints are right back in the thick of things. Again, it seems like if they can stay within a 3-point margin, they have a legitimate shot here, Robert, at deadlocking this score up.
Well, it just got a little harder. The Jaguars now with a 4-point lead. And now I'd say at this point it's a desperation time for the Saints to put together a run.
Which you can go one or two ways. You can play more focused, you can play more determined, and you can play more fiercer, or you can kind of play defeated, which I don't think the Saints will do, and open up more holes for the Jags. But the Jags come right back off of a mistake up in the front court by the Saints. And one more point, and this is match point for the Jags with Govea at the helm for the serve.
And she was a little wild in that one. I talked earlier, Blake, how she likes to hit it hard, and it shows again today. She's hit several of those, and that was one of the highest thrown serves I've ever seen, and that says something considering how high Govea likes to throw it.
Yeah, her and Blair Bolton. Blair has a unique serve of her own, but she has height behind it as well, and that allows them to get set under that serve and control it better. And the Saints, one via mistake and one via a kill that ran a little bit wide of the in play line, have secured their 21st point. The Saints come back, and initially a block by Chloe and Savannah on the front court, but the carom off of their block went to their back court, and nobody thought it was going to go in that direction and could not revert back in time to save the dig out there. So the 22nd point goes to the Saints. Coach Quarles calls a timeout. You don't see that often, but when she does, she usually adds a game plan and a strategy to help them win.
Well, the reason she doesn't do it often is she hasn't really had to the last several days when the Jaguars dominated on Tuesday. There was no need to, and there hasn't really been a need to because of the fast starts they've had today up until now, when they're really in a position where they got to close it out, and the Saints are just barely behind.
So with that being said, and this is the closest the Saints have been all matchup long. So my question to you is, in your mind, do you think that the pressure is more on the Jags here, or is it more on the Saints?
Well, it's more on the Saints considering it's 2-0, and of course, if the Saints can pull it off, the Jaguars still have the momentum going into set 4 in that regard. But at the same time, if you're the Jaguars, you want to close it out and not wait around. So there's pressure on both sides, but definitely more so on the Saints because it's match point, and you're down 2-0.
Right. And we've also seen how the Jags have had a modicum of trouble closing sets out, but they take it right there. Match point and victory number 11 is attributed to the Jags off of a dig that no other Saint could respond to, and that tacks on the Jags' 11th victory in a fight at the finish. But Robert, a sweep nonetheless in a landslide first and second set. Augusta emphatically makes a statement to the rest of the Beach Ball Conference saying, we are here to stay, we are not going anywhere, and we are coming for what we lost last year, and we are going to keep on fighting, attack, and be a force to reckon with throughout the rest of the Peach Belt Conference play.
Absolutely, and I mentioned this earlier. You want to, with the first game, take the wins early on so you're not in a position where you're trying to make an uphill battle to get into the conference tournament or play for seeding. You want to be in a better position for later in the season to finish strong by getting the wins early on. The Jaguars are able to do that here in this one today, and like not only that, but every team that starts conference play today wants to be able to set the tone and get wins early to show the rest of the conference that they're the team to beat.
Absolutely. Well, the Jags come out and make a serious statement to the whole Peach Belt Conference, and it is going to be a long and rigorous season, but it is off to a high start. It is off to a splendid start, and it is off to a start that the Jaguars knew they could get off to. And from this perspective here, the Jaguars are going to be a serious contender in the Peach Belt Conference all season long. We will be right back to wrap everything up and maybe, just maybe, have a player interview when we come back. We'll have to wait and see, but stay tuned.